Let's begin by telling you that Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima says federal government's health sector reforms have secured over $4.8 billion in potential investments. He made this known during the commissioning and grand opening of Sahad hospitals in Abuja. The Vice President said this significant investment is part of the Tinubu administration's commitment to revitalizing Nigeria's healthcare system. He also outlined the comprehensive strategy aimed at addressing long-standing challenges and advancing Nigeria's healthcare system. Shettima said the health sector reforms under the Tinubu administration are supported by a robust roadmap designed to tackle persistent issues that have affected the system for decades. More than 10,000 people have been displaced and farmlands and properties worth millions of naira have been destroyed following weeks of intense rainfall in Gumi local government area, Zamfara State. Emir of Gumi, Hassan Lawal, made this known during an on-the-spot assessment visit by Governor Dauda Lawal. According to the Emir, more than 10,000 people have been affected. The governor sympathized with the flood victims and announced an immediate relief package, including 10,000 bags of assorted grains, mosquito nets, and blankets. He also pledged to address long-term flood management by constructing new drainage systems, repairing existing dams, and potentially building additional ones to prevent future disasters. A worsening fuel scarcity is gripping Nigeria as millions of citizens endure skyrocketing prices and severe shortages of petrol. The ongoing crisis, which has persisted intermittently for weeks, has escalated, with long queues reappearing at filling stations nationwide. Reports from major cities like Lagos and Abuja reveal that many filling stations have run out of petrol, while others are selling at exorbitant prices, further compounding the crisis. This has led to a sharp increase in transportation fares, adding to the hardship faced by commuters. Frustrated motorists and commuters have voiced their anger and disappointment over the government's failure to resolve the lingering fuel shortage. As the situation deteriorates, citizens are urging the government to take immediate and decisive action to alleviate the scarcity and provide much-needed relief to the public. Our correspondent Igbalani Omoni was out on the streets of Lagos and gave us a live update.
Assurances from the national oil company in Nigeria telling people that we're just having distribution issues and it will be sorted soon. We've still seen that most petrol stations do not still have the product. And the few ones that even have the product are not, they have their premises crowded with motorcycles, tricycles, users, and people holding jerrycan-bearing buyers, and people who have actually even had to disconnect the tank of their generator set just to come here to purchase the product, which is petrol. Currently, we are in Lagos. This is Ogba area, and this is one of the filling stations that is selling. And you've seen, from the few people we've spoken to earlier, they've come from various local governments, 6, 7 local government far away from here just to get to this place to get petrol. And one of the reasons why they haven't chosen this particular station is because it sells for, I wouldn't say as low, but for a price of 618 naira, as against what some independent fuel stations are selling, which goes almost to 900 or even 1,000 naira.
Umaru Kirawa brought us update from Borno State.
Well, the fuel situation in Borno State is much more similar with that of Umar here, because motorists are, the situation cannot just be explained because almost all the NNPCL filling stations are closed, including that of Yobe State. They are not dispensing today, but some filling stations are dispensing fuel, but at different prices. Some are selling at the price of 1,000 naira, others are selling at the price of 1,100, others 1,050 naira, while others are selling at 900 naira. But the unfortunate incident here in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, is that black marketing spots are selling even lesser than the conventional or the normal petrol filling stations. But like I was saying, fortunate enough, there is one filling station that distinguishes itself in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. The filling station, and I'm standing in. You can see a lot of people queued up, waiting to get their fuel. They are waiting for their turn to get their fuel because this filling station is selling at the price of 880 naira. That is why a lot of them have queued up.
Chizoba Anyongwe spoke to us from Plateau.
Station in Jos, the Plateau State capital, and you can see very well. You can see some buses just right behind me in front of the fuel station. They are waiting to buy fuel. But the funny thing that is not funny is just that the drivers have just parked their cars here and left. So what we got, pillars we got when we arrived here, is that they had information that they will start selling petrol by tomorrow. And so the fact that they want to come here, queue, and of course buy the product is an assurance that they leave their cars here, of course parked at owner's risk, leave it here, go back home, and then early tomorrow morning, which is Monday, they'll come back again when they hope that they would start selling the product. But as it is now, all the cars here, Agata, can you please pan so that we can see the queue for those waiting to buy this product? It is very, very sad. It's as long away from here, like 3-4 kilometers, you know, and nobody is inside any of these cars you are seeing. It's just for them to be sure that when they come back tomorrow, they'll be able to have this.
All right, Chizoba. In Asaba, Delta State capital, South Nigeria, major filling stations have remained crowded. Although a number of filling stations are still shut, others continue to sell for as high as 850 naira or 950 naira per litre. There have been biting scarcity of petroleum or premium motor spirit across the country for over a month, with the product previously selling for over 1,000 naira in some places. Austin Azu brought us up to speed with the happenings in Delta.
Behind one of the mega filling stations here in Asaba, earlier on, the long queue at this particular place, you discover that some people have decided to locate other filling stations. Behind me, you can see some little vehicles still trying to gain their entrance into the filling stations to get the fuel. Earlier on, we went around the state capital. We saw the liter of fuel going for 850, 950, and even 1,000. So that's to show that the product here is not readily available, unlike before where you can just go into any of these areas and you can get your product. Now from the notice you can see from this far end, you can see that this filling station is selling at the rate of 800 naira. So, and some people who are on mobile, those who are going to Lagos, those who are going to Abuja, will likely get this product as soon as possible for them to meet up, knowing quite well that the roads are not too good. They have to leave on time.
Earlier, Ukadike Chinedu, Publicity Secretary for Ipman, joined us on this development.
We only get petroleum products until NNPCL allocates petroleum products to us. And for some time now, the portal of NNPCL has been shut down. We can no longer allocate petroleum products. But recently, the NNPCL have imported petroleum products into the country, and distribution have started. I'm aware that there are some vessels that have lopsided in Port Harcourt, especially in OVH and Warri, and also in Lagos. I think the vessel will have product now. And with the independent marketer, the national president has mandated that all the independent marketers should continue to render services and ensure that if the security is good, we can be able to give services for at least for 24 hours. While we don't have good security, we should ensure that our stations open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. so that these sufferings that Nigerians are facing this period of time will be eradicated.
In the meantime, residents of Umuahia have expressed frustrations over government's inaction concerning the escalating cost of petrol at filling stations. The price of petrol has soared from 900 naira a week ago to over 1,000 naira today at the privately owned fuel stations in Umuahia. Only the NNPCL stations still sell at 595 naira per litre, resulting in very lengthy queues at their stations even when they're not selling.
My sister, is too much for us. It's very, very hard for us. In fact, very, very difficult for us, and we are not in problem, very, very problem. So there's nothing we can do than to buy it at any cost.
That's the situation we see ourselves into. We don't have any other option than to buy it because we don't actually know how they are regulating it. So it's what they give to us, we buy.
I don't know what's the problem. You understand? So I don't have choice than to buy. They're selling 1,015 naira, so that's what they're selling here. And it's too high. It's too high. It's not good. We are suffering here, so the government is supposed to look on those things, To
get fuel at a cheaper rate, because currently now fuel is now 1,000 plus, and they are selling 595 naira.
Yeah, because it's only here, it's the only place we can buy cheap fuel. 595.
I better park my car because I can't maintain it. Because I consume not less than 10 liters of fuel every day, minimum when I don't travel out of home. So that 10 liters of fuel should be about 10,000, which is not easy for me now to buy every day. So I don't know why government don't want to do something about this fuel problem. It's something that they can give an instruction. It will work the way they want it. The filling station should not be controlling the price of market, mainly the petroleum products.
We go on a break now, and when we return, former beauty queen Oluwadamilola Aderinoye finally surrenders to NDLEA. We'll bring you this and more after the break. About 150 human rights volunteers in Nigeria have been equipped with relevant skills to lead the campaign against human rights violations in rural communities across the country. This initiative by Amnesty International empowered youths from 25 states in Nigeria and will develop a framework for the efficient deployment of personnel for campaigns against rights violations. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, completes the report.
It's a gathering of about 150 volunteers from Amnesty International across 25 states of the Federation. Each of them is being empowered with the necessary tools and strategies that will aid their advocacy for human rights within their communities.
Today we're engaging in Nigeria with volunteers and supporters that work with us to ensure that the work they do across different parts of Nigeria reaches the voiceless, in particular people in different communities, looking at different types of rights that are being violated, whether by individuals or state actors or non-state actors. Issues around freedom of expression, assembly, pushing for the rights of people.
While the purpose of the gathering is to increase the number of human rights defenders across states and local communities, it also offers them an opportunity to share ideas.
Our expectation from them is to improve their capacity in the work that they do. They're very vital. They're part of the chain of the work that we do. They do a lot of the field work with people also who work with them in the field. And so our expectation is they pick up skills, knowledge, and then also network. What we've done is to bring all of them from across the country to see how they can collaborate in doing the work together and sharing knowledge, cross-learning across the country that will also help pushing for protection of human rights in Nigeria.
In places where we cannot reach, they help us in doing that. And my expectation from this event is that we create a more vibrant community. Apart from that, we also want to launch more like the national platform, where everyone who is interested in joining the platform are able to keep abreast. Also ensure that they're also empowered in the sense that they're able to understand what is needed to be done in terms of the priorities of Amnesty International Nigeria.
Amnesty International says that it is hoping that the volunteers will help speak out against rights violations in their communities. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idonk Joseph.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has seized narcotics valued at 17.9 billion naira in major operations at the One and Tinkan seaports in Lagos and Rivers states. NDLEA spokesman Femi Babafemi said the haul include over 31 million pills of tramadol, 225 milligrams and 730,000 bottles of codeine-based syrup. The seizures followed intelligence on shipments originating from India, prompting a 100% joint examination of the containers by NDLEA, Customs and other security agencies. At Tinkan Port, Lagos, 350,000 bottles of codeine syrup were recovered from 2 containers on August 29 and 30. Meanwhile, at Port Harcourt's One Port, NDLEA operatives intercepted over 29 million tramadol pills and 380,000 bottles of codeine syrup from 3 containers on August 29. In the same vein, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has announced that former beauty queen Oluwadamilola Aderinoye has surrendered to its Lagos command. Aderinoye, who was crowned Miss Commonwealth Nigeria Culture in 2015-2016, had been on the run for 8 months after being declared wanted by the agency. According to a statement by NDLEA spokesperson Femi Babafemi on Sunday, Aderinoye was declared wanted after she escaped during a raid on her Lekki apartment on January 24, 2024. During the raid, operatives recovered 606 grams of Canadian loud, a synthetic strain of cannabis, along with an electronic weighing scale, a large quantity of drug packaging materials, a black RAV4 SUV with registration number Lagos KSF 872GQ, and a picture frame of the ex-beauty queen. Authorities in Niger announced on Sunday that torrential rains have claimed the lives of at least 15 more people, adding to the devastating impact of the ongoing downpours in the West African nation. Since June, heavy rains have battered Africa's Sahel region, with Niger among the hardest hit. The latest casualties bring the death toll in Niger to at least 217, with over 350,000 people affected across the country. Last week, rising flood waters nearly severed the capital, Niamey, from the rest of the country before the waters receded. The most recent fatalities occurred on Friday in Maradi, Niger's economic hub and one of the areas most severely impacted by the rains. The city experienced a staggering 150 millimeters of rainfall in just 90 minutes. Senegalese Prime Minister Usman has accused his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu of prolonging the war in Gaza for his own political survival and called for the isolation of Israel. Speaking at a rally in support of the Palestinian cause at Dakar's Grand Mosque, Sonko said Netanyahu's grip on power is reliant on the ongoing conflict and suggested that the Israeli leader is willing to sacrifice countless lives to maintain his position.
Dont le pouvoir aujourd'hui dépend de cette guerre. La survie politique dépend de cette guerre et qui est prêt à marcher sur des milliers de cadavres pour rester Premier ministre et pour ne pas faire face à la justice de son pays. C'est ça les motivations. Il faut aujourd'hui rassembler tous ceux qui dénoncent cette injustice, travailler à une solution politique, qui est une solution d'isolement de l'État d'Israël. Isolement politique. Nous sommes dans un monde particulièrement hypocrite. Un monde de 2 poids, 2 mesures. Un monde où tous ceux qui nous chantent la démocratie et les droits de l'homme sont ceux aujourd'hui qui appuient Israël, qui l'arment, qui lui donnent les moyens d'envoyer des bombes sur des populations innocentes.
The minister has announced that the country has been approved for membership in the BRICS New Development Bank, NDB. The decision was made on Saturday and announced by NDB President Dilma Rousseff during a meeting in Cape Town, South Africa. In a statement released on Sunday, Algeria's finance ministry stated that joining the NDB, the financial arm of the BRICS group, marks a significant step in Algeria's integration into the global financial system. The BRICS Bank, founded by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, was established as an alternative to traditional international financial institutions such as the World Bank and IMF. The bank has recently expanded its membership, welcoming countries including Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. The United Nations Deputy Secretary General, Iena Mohammed, has welcomed the arrival of food aid in Sudan, but emphasized that it remains insufficient. During her visit to the Adre border crossing in Chad, she witnessed the passage of a humanitarian convoy and highlighted the urgent need for more support. Iena stated that the UN is currently able to fund only 25 to 30% of the required aid and urged governments to fulfill their commitments to help those in need. She also called for an immediate resolution to the ongoing conflict in Sudan. Recent negotiations in Geneva between the warring parties saw little progress towards ending the fighting, though they did agree to allow humanitarian aid to pass through two key border points.
The people inside Sudan have suffered for a long time. There are many crises in the world, and we hear about the atrocities, we hear about the hunger. And today an additional border, an important border, has been opened in the last week, and we are seeing aid going through to try to reach those people. They are in many camps, they are in many towns, and we will try to see how we get through. We work with local partners, so these are Sudanese people, and we hope that we can get this aid to where it's needed. You will have heard what the Secretary General has to say. What is important right now is humanitarian access. We also have a big challenge of polio and the vaccinations that need to be had. There are many issues in Gaza on multiple tracks. What we are saying is that we need that two-state plan, that process put forward and agreed to.
In other news from around the world, Israel's military announced on Sunday the discovery of 6 dead hostages in a Gaza tunnel as medics in the Palestinian territory prepare for pauses in fighting to carry out a polio vaccination drive. According to a military statement, the hostages' remains were recovered on Saturday from an underground tunnel in Rafah area and have been formally identified in Israel. The victims were named as Hirsch Goldberg Paulin, a dual U.S.-Israeli national, Carmel Gat, Eden Yerushalmi, Alexander Lobanov, a Russian-Israeli, Almog Sarusi, and Master Sergeant Ori Danino. The 6 were among the 251 hostages taken during Hamas's October 7 attack on southern Israel, which sparked the ongoing war. Currently, 97 hostages remain captive in Gaza, including 33 whom the Israeli army has declared dead.
כי גופות יקיריהן הותרו על ידי כוח צה"ל במנהרה תת-קרקעית ברפיח. על פי הערכה הראשונית העומדת ברשותנו, הם נרצחו באכזריות על ידי מחבלי חמאס זמן קצר לפני שהגענו אליהם.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to settle the score with Hamas after the military recovered the bodies of 6 hostages from a tunnel in Gaza. Netanyahu also accused Hamas of being responsible for a deadly shooting attack earlier on Sunday near Hebron in the occupied West Bank. According to police, 3 officers, 2 men and 1 woman were killed in the early morning attack near the Terkmiya checkpoint close to Hebron. While Hamas has not officially claimed responsibility for the West Bank attack, it described the incident as a heroic operation by the resistance in the statement. Pope Francis has expressed his solidarity with the people of Ukraine who are suffering greatly due to the ongoing war with Russia. During his Sunday Angelus prayer in St. Peter's Square, the Pope said he stands in solidarity with the suffering Ukrainian people who are heavily impacted by attacks on energy infrastructures. He highlighted the devastating consequences which have left over 1 million people without access to electricity and water. The Pope's words come as the conflict continues to escalate, causing widespread humanitarian suffering in Ukraine.
Sono vicino al martoriato popolo ucraino, duramente colpito da attacchi contro le infrastrutture energetiche. Oltre a causare morti e feriti, essi hanno lasciato più di 1 milione di persone senza elettricità.
In business now, Nigeria's planned bank recapitalization is expected to boost the country's gross domestic product. According to Professor Pius Olarenwaju, the 23rd president and chairman of the Council, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, the banking industry is rapidly evolving and professionals must embrace technology and continuous learning to stay ahead. He emphasized the need for excellence in the banking operations and urged bankers to adopt a growth mindset, understand the evolving landscape, and build a strong personal brand. The recapitalization plan is seen as a positive development for the economy, and industry leaders are optimistic about its impact. To further discuss this, I'm joined by Kenneth Ikenwa, business and public policy analyst. Hello, Kenneth. Thank you for joining us at this time.
Good evening, Dashen. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Kenneth. So what are the primary drivers behind Nigeria's decision to recapitalize its banks, and how will this move impact the overall health of the financial sector?
Right, this news for recapitalization was received with a lot of mixed feelings. But when it comes to economics and when it comes to repositioning in the financial sector, you don't embark on such with feelings. All right, so there are a couple of enablers, a couple of benefits that are supposed to be an outcome of all of this. And amongst this, are factors that are responsible for this decision. First is notably the fact that the currency has been devalued by over 300% in the last 2, 3, 4 years. And it's very important that banks are recapitalized so that they can play the role they're supposed to play in the economy, to stimulate the economy, to be able also to fund the real sector and to fund trade. So the inability of the Nigerian banking sector, and especially the commercial banks, to actually contribute in funding the real sector and in funding trade is one of the reasons why this decision has been taken. And most importantly, the banks have to become globally competitive. And for you to attract foreign direct investment and foreign portfolio investment and all sorts of investors in the country, they want to be able to look at the banking institutions and compare them vis-a-vis what is obtainable out there in the globe, and ensure that those banks will be able to anticipate events and also help them repatriate their fund profits as at when due. These, among other reasons, are some of the reasons why we need this recapitalization now.
All right, Kenneth. Now, how do you envision the recapitalization plan affecting small and medium-sized enterprises in Nigeria? Are there opportunities or challenges that might arise for them, especially challenges?
Well, that's a very strategic question, and one would have been so bold to say that the small and medium-scale enterprises subsector should have been the biggest beneficiaries of this recapitalization drive. A couple of years ago, I did what I called shadow borrowing. I went to 1, 2, 3, 4 banks to try to see what conditions they actually would give for you to be able to borrow money as a small businessman. I possibly tried to disguise myself. I was trying to get information. I can tell you that the small and medium-scale enterprise sector are not actually smiling. They find it very hard to get funds from most of these commercial banks. And then it actually begs the question, what do some of these banks actually do? What kind of banking are they actually doing? Not able to fund small and medium scales. And if the rates are so high that it frustrates and makes it impossible for small businesses to actually breathe. Now, when you're asking small businesses to come and collect loans at about 25% of interest rate and some other additional rates, administrative rates, these are some of the issues that should actually be looked into by the central bank going forward. So it's not just enough for us to have strong banks and have capital base. It is important for us to beg the question, or to actually ask the question, whether they are actually funding businesses, whether they're actually funding trade, and what exactly is responsible for humongous abnormal profits that is actually being seen in the commercial banking sector, when in fact and indeed people cannot say they have access to funding, access to credit, or they have access, to capital, or the cost of capital is very high. These are issues that should follow the recapitalization drive over the next 24 months, I hope.
All right, so Kenneth, in your expert's opinion, what regulatory measures, will be necessary to ensure the success of the recapitalization plan and also to prevent potential risks and unintended consequences?
All right, it's important for me to play with some R's here. And what are these R's? One is recapitalization. And recapitalization doesn't necessarily translate to strong regulations. It doesn't necessarily exemplify reforms, and it doesn't actually drive down rates. What the recapitalization is actually aimed at is reposition the banks, and so we're going to be seeing a lot of mergers and acquisitions. Now, when you have mergers and acquisitions, one of the important things that the central bank has to actually look through is to conduct its own external due diligence to ensure that this capital, these funds have actually been raised according to due process, and then there must be strong corporate governance going forward. The regulations in the sector and in the new sector that will emerge have to be completely aimed at ensuring that the leakages in the system are catalyzed by the banking sector do no longer exist, so that we can actually have proper banking on and people can actually have access to funding, and we can actually drive and stimulate the economic growth and development that the banking institution, which is supposed to be the catalyst for strong competitiveness of the economy, they can actually play that role and help us get out of the present economic doldrums. I think there's hope. I'm yet to see what the blueprints will be in terms of regulation, and I'm certain that with the present team on ground, there most likely will be a step up in corporate governance rules and due diligence guiding this new recapitalization regime. We did it in 2004. The banking sector in Nigeria became the envy of the world. I hope we can do it 20 years after. So let's look out for the Cardoso solution, just as we got the Soludo solution in 2004.
All right, but what influence, will it have on Nigeria's economic growth prospects? Talking about other policy interventions that could complement or even support this initiative.
Well, if this strategic initiative is well appropriated, it should be able to help us reboot our economy. But my strong fear is that some of these new initiatives are actually audio initiatives. Because if the common man, like myself, I did a shadow borrowing attempt some years ago, and you could find the stringent conditions that came with borrowing as little as 500,000. So if you need a 500,000 loan to boost your business, and somebody's asking you to go get collateral of land or buildings and all of that, that actually begs the question of what purpose these banks actually exist for. So if we can actually appropriate this strategic initiative, we will see more trade, we will see more growth, we will see a drive in industrialization, and we will be able to position the economy again to perhaps be the second largest, if not the largest economy in Africa. It is very key that we go in this direction, but we also must ensure that the trade-offs are not to the detriment of the majority of the Nigerian population. So we're going to be trade-offs in cost and quality. We're going to be seeing trade-offs and growth versus profitability. I hope the emphasis will be on growth. I hope the emphasis will be on also helping businesses grow and help economy grow, and not just emphasis for shareholders' funds and the declaration of abnormal profits like we have seen most recently by a lot of Nigerian big banks.
Hopefully, Kenneth. Now, just before we let you go, can you tell us how Nigeria can actually apply insights, from lessons drawn from international examples of bank recapitalizations, in order to optimize the effectiveness of its own plan?
All right, Dashen, I'm going to decline answering that question. Why? Because we don't need to go too far to actually see what a good example was and get an insight. Now, in 2004, we embarked on this same direction, this same strategic direction, and it was successful. With Soludo on ground back then, and with the Soludo solution that brought about the consolidation of the industry, we saw an economy that was $65 billion worth in GDP, move from $65 billion worth in GDP in 5 years to become the fastest growing economy in the world and to about $300 billion in GDP. So what we did 20 years ago is a fantastic example. That is an appropriate benchmark. Let's get it right, let's do it right, and let's put smiles on the face of Nigerians, and prosperity, saturating entire nooks and crannies of the economy, and then we can begin to maybe talk about renewed hope again.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kenneth, for speaking to us and giving us an expert's opinion on this. Thank you.
Always my pleasure.
Still talking business, an economist, Adetilewa Adebajo, has said that it is now evident that the cart was put before the horse as reforms in Nigeria were implemented too quickly, devoid of adequate planning and resources, leading to unintended consequences. In a report titled, "Has Anyone Seen a Giant?" Mr. Adebajo, entrepreneurial transaction business manager and CEO at the CFG Advisory, explains that the credibility of the reform program of the President Bola Tinubu-led administration is now in question and a state of quagmire. According to him, he had advised Nigerians in January this year to be prepared to endure an 18-month economic recovery period that will be accompanied by a high interest rate regime to tame inflation and FX volatility. He admits, however, that as year-end approaches, the gap between FX markets has narrowed volatility and seen the return of the Dutch auction. He also notes that the early August two-day strike and protest that shut down the nation was a wake-up call for the government, adding that the inability to implement a social intervention program to cushion the impact of the reforms, corruption allegations against the minister in charge, and fiscal indiscipline have led to disenchantment among the populace. In the world of sports, Italian Paralympics rower Giacomo Perini has been disqualified from the PR1 men's singles calls final and missed out on a bronze medal on Sunday for using communication equipment. Perini, who is 28, who had his right leg amputated due to a form of bone cancer, crossed the line in Paris in third place before Australian Eric Horry was eventually handed the bronze medal. Britain's Ben Pritchard took gold, and Ukraine's two-time champion Roman Poliansky claimed silver. World Rowing said Perini was found to be using communication equipment during the race and said the Italian team have appealed the decision and a reaction from the international governing body was expected by the end of day. Premier League side Chelsea were held to a 1-1 draw at home by Crystal Palace as Eberechi Eze's excellent second-half strike earned Oliver Glasner's side their first Premier League point of the season at Stamford Bridge. Fresh from scraping through their Conference League qualifier despite defeat to Servette on Thursday, Enzo Maresca saw his team dominate Palace in the first half as he sought back-to-back league wins before Eberechi Eze's superb equalizer got Crystal Palace up and running for the season after back-to-back losses. Meanwhile, Chelsea have 4 points from their 3 games so far. NFL player Ricky Pearsall has been shot in the chest during an attempted robbery in San Francisco. Pearsall, who is 23, sustained a bullet wound to his chest and is in a serious but stable condition, according to his team, the San Francisco 49ers, following the incident by the city's Union Square on Saturday afternoon. Police say a 17-year-old suspect is in custody and charges are pending. Footage shared on social media showed a shirtless Pearsall being walked to an ambulance by paramedics and sitting on a gurney as he held the shirt to his chest. Pearsall was a first-round draft pick by the 49ers in April when the best college players were chosen to join the NFL. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of our major stories. You heard that federal government to revamp health sector with $4.8 billion investment. You also heard that NDLEA seizes 17.9 billion naira worth of narcotics in Lagos rivers. Finally, we told you that Algeria joins BRICS New Development Bank. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Dashen. Usman.